They ask you, "What are you going to do for your birthday?" And you answer, "Nothing. It's just an ordinary day." And for some reason, it's exactly at that moment that people start looking at you as if something is wrong with you. As if a normal person is obliged to want a cake, candles, messages, noise, and attention. As if not wanting all of that means you're offended, broken, or deeply unhappy. But here's the uncomfortable truth that almost no one talks about. Sometimes a person doesn't care about their birthday, not because something is wrong with them, but because they've understood more about themselves and about life than others have. And it gets even more interesting when it turns out that behind the phrase, "it's just an ordinary day," there can be three completely different psychologies. One is about old pain. The second is about the way your mind works. And the third one can turn everything you thought you knew about self-love upside down. Because maybe it's not that you don't care. Maybe it's about why you don't care. Let's start with the quietest reason, the one people almost never talk about directly. Sometimes a person stops expecting anything special from their birthday, not because they've become stronger, but because they've been disappointed too many times. In childhood, a birthday is almost magic. You wait for people to remember you, to notice you, for today at least to feel important. Not the best person on the planet, just important, even if only for one day. But if year after year something goes wrong, a very quiet but very deep change begins inside. Someone forgot, someone didn't come, someone congratulated you just for the sake of it. Someone you expected warmth from turned out to be emotionally distant. On the outside, it may seem like a trifle, but for the psyche, it's not a trifle, because it doesn't just remember the event, it remembers the feeling. And one day, the brain makes a decision that looks like indifference, but is actually protection. Don't expect anything anymore. It will be safer this way. Here's the first powerful realization. Maybe you don't actually not care about your birthday. Maybe you've simply not been allowed to hope for a long time. This is a very important difference, because a person who expects nothing seems cold only from the outside. But inside, they may not be cold. They may be cautious. Not indifferent, just tired. Not impossibly mature, just too used to not counting on anything good. Imagine an 8-year-old child. He has been waiting for this day for a long time. He has already pictured it in his head. Balloons, laughter, gifts, attention, the feeling that someone needs him. And then the day comes, and it turns out to be smaller, quieter, poorer, and colder than he dreamed. The child most likely won't make a scene. He won't say, "It hurts." He will simply expect less next time, then even less. And then he grows up, and one day calmly says, "I don't like celebrating my birthday at all." And no one sees that behind this phrase there may not be maturity, but an old inner deal. If I don't expect anything, I can't be disappointed. But here's what's important. This is not the only reason, and not everything is always so dramatic. There is a second type of people, and they are completely different. Some people really don't attach importance to their birthday, not because it hurts them, but because their mind is always living somewhere else. They are constantly thinking, planning, creating, solving problems, building something inside or outside themselves. They always have a dozen tabs open in their head at the same time. They can forget what day of the week it is. They can fail to notice how a whole month has passed. They can live so fast inside that the calendar simply stops being emotionally significant. For such people, dates lose their weight, not because life is empty, but because it is too full. And here is the second realization. Sometimes you forget about your birthday not because you don't value yourself, but because your brain values something completely different. Not ritual, not symbol, not mandatory joy on schedule, but movement, meaning, idea, goal, silence. Such people are often misunderstood. They are told, "You're boring," or "Do you even know how to enjoy yourself?" But they do know how to enjoy life. It's just that their joy doesn't always look the way society is used to seeing it. For some, happiness is candles and a full table. For others, it's waking up without inner pressure, drinking coffee in silence, and spending the day the way they want, not the way they're supposed to. And here begins the most uncomfortable part, because there is also a third type of people, and perhaps it is the most interesting of all. These are people who haven't forgotten. They haven't been offended. They haven't closed themselves off. It doesn't hurt them. They just don't need it. They look at this whole ritual, congratulations, obligatory joy, photos, noise, attention, and understand one thing that many find hard to accept. My value does not appear on my birthday, and it does not disappear if no one throws me a party. Here is the third most powerful realization. The most mature reason for not loving your birthday is not trauma, but inner self-reliance. Think about it. Most people live in anticipation of special moments, the next holiday, the next achievement, the next day when they can finally feel that life is real. But special moments almost always end quickly. The cake is eaten, the messages fade, the guests leave, the balloons deflate. And if a person builds their sense of worth only on these peaks, they are doomed to constantly wait for the next dose. But some people, at some point, simply step off this inner carousel. They stop waiting for one special day a year to allow themselves to feel that everything is okay with them. They learn to feel whole on an ordinary Tuesday, without a reason, without spectators, without applause. And this really irritates those around them, because it breaks the familiar system. If a person doesn't need external validation, it's harder to control them. If they don't need a show, it's harder to impress them. If they don't make a cult out of attention, it's harder to drag them into someone else's expectations. Not everyone who says my birthday doesn't matter to me is saying it from a place of freedom. Sometimes it's still fear, disguised as maturity. And here is the question that can turn out to be more painful than it seems. Do you really not need this day, or are you simply not allowing yourself the right to want warmth? Because there is a huge gulf between these two states. It's one thing when you are truly calm, when you don't need noise to feel your own worth, when silence for you is not emptiness, but home. And it's quite another when you want people to remember you. You want closeness, you want warmth, you want to feel important. But you say, I don't care in advance, so you don't have to face possible disappointment. Some people don't celebrate their birthday, not because they've outgrown it, but because they don't want to test one terrifying thought. What if no one actually comes? What if no one remembers? What if this confirms everything I secretly fear about myself? And then the psyche does what it does best. It protects. It forbids waiting. It forbids wanting. It forbids hoping. From the outside, it looks like indifference, but inside, it can be a very old pain that has simply learned to speak in a calm voice. So, if it seems to you that your birthday means nothing to you, ask yourself one honest question. Is this freedom or armor? If it's freedom, there's nothing wrong with that. Really, not everyone needs a celebration to feel alive. Not everyone needs a crowd to feel loved. Not everyone needs a special day to remember their own worth. But if it's armor, that doesn't make you broken either. It makes you a person who has been protecting their vulnerability for too long. And perhaps real self-acceptance begins not with a party, and not even with refusing one, but with honesty. With the honesty to admit, yes, this matters to me, or no, I really am fine with silence. Without shame, without playing games, without the need to seem correct. Because self-love doesn't have to look like a celebration, but it also doesn't have to look like demonstrative indifference. Sometimes self-love is allowing yourself to want. Sometimes it's stopping pretending that you have to want it. And perhaps right now, the most important thing is happening. While you're listening to this video, you suddenly recognize yourself not in the words "I don't care," but in the reason behind them. Maybe you're not cold, you're just tired of waiting. Maybe you're not indifferent, you're just living in a different inner rhythm. Or maybe you're one of those rare people who truly don't need a special day to feel, I am already whole, I am already enough. And if that's the case, then maybe everything has been okay with you all along. It's just that no one explained it to you before. If this state feels familiar to you, write, it was just a day. And if you realized that you actually do care, write that too. Because sometimes one honest admission heals more than the noisiest party. And if topics like this are close to you, about the hidden mechanisms of the psyche, inner protections, and things we've been unable to explain even to ourselves for years, stay. Because the next video may not just interest you. It may finally name out loud what you felt your whole life but could never formulate.